Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ion Radio. I'm John, and today we have another episode of the Backseat Admiral. I'm not actually doing this live. Things have been really busy, so I've actually fallen behind a couple weeks in Backseat, so I figured I'd just try to get a recording out to you guys and talk about fleets before I have like half a season stacked up. So today we're going to be talking about Season 5, Episodes 3 and 4. So I'm going to get right on into it. So our first matchup is Episode 3, which is Radis versus Bale. Like everything in Season 5, we have user submitted lists from us, from Patreon, from our Discord, and from our YouTube channel. So today we have Lord Kinbito with his Bale fleet, and we have Melfi 1105 with the Radis fleet. We're going to be talking about them first. So let's go into this Bale fleet. This Bale fleet, it has a Pelta class medical frigate with Bale Organa, clone navigational officer, auxiliary shield teams, munitions resupply, and proximity mines. This whole fleet has a bunch of proximity mines, which are kind of fun to use, especially with the Republic, because pretty much all their ships have 4 engineering, so you get like a pretty good value regardless of what chassis you put the proximity mines on. Bale is one of my favorite commanders for Gar. He just does what Gar does, and he does it well. Nothing like super specialized, but sometimes you just need to drop maneuver and an engineering and whatever your ship has as a dial all at once on a ship, and he's useful for that. The next ship is a Pelta class medical frigate with auxiliary shield teams, parts resupply, and proximity mines. So we have lots of tokens here, or dials. So you have Bale dials, which are the nav and engineering, clone navigational officer to pass whatever Bale ship is doing, so it's like a 2-time use comms net for what you're revealing, and you get to use your dial. Munitions, so you can pass out confires. And then this one over here has parts resupply, so you can pass out engineering. So you're pretty stacked with tokens on everything. The next ship is an Acclimator 1 class assault frigate with boarding troopers, one of my favorite cards. Proximity mines, external racks, and linked turbo laser towers. This ship is technically for a Gar ship, like lightly upgraded, even though it has quite a few upgrades on it, but it's really designed to drop in, try to dump as many dice as possible, as fast as possible, die, and then, or get out of there. So it's like a little suicide missile. Then you have a Venator 1 class Star Destroyer with clone gunners. And you have all those tokens on all those other ships that you can try to utilize it. And especially like with your Acclimator wanting to be up close and personal, you should have a ship in range to trigger it. Intensify firepower, the SFAT, assault concussion missiles, linked turbo laser towers, and the Tranquility title. I've talked about this a lot before. Personally, I prefer to have APTs. I think APTs are far superior to assault concussion missiles because the fastest way to kill a ship is to block the redirect and go straight through a shield zone into the ship. So I would rather them not try to redirect to other places. And if I'm trying to keep them from redirecting to other places, I don't really want to be doing damage on the side. I just want to bore right through. And clone gunners allows me to pretty much always block the redirect with the SFAT. And so if I get a crit, I want it to go to the hull because that's an additional damage to the hull. So with a SPAT and clone gunners, let's say you get the crit, so that's a black crit, and 4 or 5 hits, and then clone blocks the redirect, then theoretically you're doing like 7 points of damage into the same hull zone. Brace it to 4. That's no shields. Do I really want to put a damage on either side? Not really. I just want to do hull damage at that point. So APT a lot of times for me is a lot better. This is a brawly type of Venator. It allows you to use Link Turbo Laser Towers to reroll those reds out the front because at long range it's not doing much, and then spat out the side however you want to try to do its most damage. The thing that I question the most on this ship is Intensify Firepower. For me, this is really a single-use card because I'm going to be using my Concentrate Fires to re-enable the SFAT card, not try to power Intensify Firepower. Because if you look at where the timing for all of this takes place, is I have to have a token on my ship at the end of the round. And with that token, I spend it off to ready the SPAT. Start of the round, I have no tokens because I can't get past the tokens, so I can't activate Intensify Firepower. I would switch it out for something else. Gar can't turn, so I think it's Take Evasive Action might be a better card for this fleet, just because it's really just the Venator that would be turning then. I don't know, maybe just not use it and just take those 6 points and put them into upgrades on another ship or something like that. But I just feel like Intensify Firepower here is a discard once to use it type of card compared to the rest of the fleet, which is trying to pass the ship tokens to basically make sure the SFAT is working properly. So that's my one take on that. For fighters, there's a weird 3 fighter count, and it's kind of funny. Like in the middle of playing the game, I'm like, this is weird. 3 fighters. I don't know what to really do with them. And then when we go into talking about the game, I'm like, oh, I got you. But it's a little bit too late for this. These go with the Acclimator when you do Hyperspace Assault. Makes a lot of sense after I didn't put them in hyperspace, and then my Acclimator got bombed like crazy. These are just there to protect it in hyperspace. Or, you do what I did and get a couple extra activations or deployments with them. So you have 1 Delta 7 and 2 V19s, which is kind of cheap for Stay Off Me fleet. So that's the first fleet. Let's go on to the fleet that Ken flew. Ken flew this Radis fleet. Radis is sitting on an Assault Frigate Mark IIB with Walix Ballistics, Caitlin and Sholin, Advanced Projectors, Link Turbo Laser Towers, and the Paragon Title. Paragon Title is hard to use unless you're using the Salvo, like converting this over to a Salvo build. Because it only gets a dice if you can double arc. And to be fair, the Assault Frigate is pretty easy to double arc, and for the most part, people won't be worrying about it because you're going to be radicing in a ship, and whatever you're going to be radicing in, they're going to be trying to focus on more than this. So in the background, you can try to convert it to get a double arc. But it requires you to be able to attack the same ship twice. Walix helps you get tokens back. Caitlin and Sholin helps you reroll reds. Yeah, it's and then you have Link, so you have lots of rerolls, which is good. And then Radis and Advanced Projectors, because this is actually a really heavily shielded ship. It has the shields of a Star Destroyer, and it costs 72 points and is a medium base. So you can survive decently well with shields. It only has 6 hull, so as soon as you get through those shields, you melt. But Advanced Projectors kind of helps you with that, and Walix trying to get you back your tokens as well. So you can basically just use your redirect like crazy. Next ship is the ship that gets Radis dropped in. It is an MC-75 armored cruiser. It has Ezra Bridger, rapid launch bays, electronic countermeasures, external racks, Link Turbo Laser Towers, and the Profundity Title. Profundity allows you to take whatever this next ship is into its cargo bays, and rapid launch bays allows it to take fighters inside of it to drop out as well. Everything else on the ship is just kind of standard. You get your 1 good attack with Radis, use X-Racks, reroll with Linked, stay alive with electronic countermeasures, because when you Radis drop in, it can't be the first ship to activate in the turn. So if you're first player, you can Radis drop it in, but you technically can't do it until your second activation. So you need that electronic countermeasures to make sure you stay alive. Ezra Bridger also allows you to Raddus drop in and move an obstacle in the way or out of the way. So like if they're sitting on a station collecting points with contested outposts, you can chuck it out of the way. Or if they're sitting behind like a debris field and you couldn't theoretically shoot them, you can move that out of the way so that it's completely gone. The ship that would be in profundity that gets spit out is a Hammerhead torpedo corvette. It is got Hondo Anaga, Cham Syndulla, external racks, and Gorell's armor. Cham says it's one of those boarding type cards that allows you to redo the entire command stack of the opponent. This is really good specifically against things like Starhawks and Super Star Destroyers, because it's a 4 stack, so they're never going to be able to get a command that they want. So especially with like things like Super Star Destroyers, like if they have no squadrons, it's like really easy. Here's a 4 stack of squadrons. Have fun with that. External racks, because on that drop in, this is going to be like a hit, ram into the person, die, and whatever, or hit and scoot. So you're only going to get really one set of black dice. So external racks just exponentially increases the firepower, and then Gorell's honor. When you crash into someone, you deal them a face-up card. So you just use it like a missile. And Hondo allows you to make sure that all of your ships have what they need to do on that turn you drop them in. So you can do rapid launch bays, and then you can give yourself a squadron dial with Cham, and then on the Hammerhead itself, you can take like a concentrate fire to add even more dice. So it's a pretty beefy drop-in ship. Next ship is a GR-75, medium transport, Torin Far, bombing command center. And I don't think there's enough fighters to benefit from Bomber Command Center. This is an 8-point investment here for only having 3 squadrons. So kind of like how Intensify was for the last fleet. If I were to change any single card out on this list, it would 100% be Bomber Command Center to something else. Especially, I'll have to look at what the bids were for both of these players. But as a Raddus, you really want to go first. And I think the Bale list actually had a higher bid, and I just chose to go second because I was very comfortable going second. So yeah, there's only a 2-point bid here, and I had 3, so that's not much either. But if you drop Bomber Command Center to like even just CommsNet to pass out a token, you would save yourself 6 points, which brings you closer to 392, which is more respectable for a Raddus drop. I just don't think the point investment's really there for it. So if you look at the fighters, you have only 3 squadrons. Luke Skywalker, good. Nora Wesley and Gold Squadron. So they're all bombers. So if they don't have fighters, this does something. If they do have fighters, you're going to get squashed because they're going to just tie you down and just not allow you to attack ships the entire time. But that's one of the reasons why you bring the Raddus ship in, because this will be right on top of them on that turn. But they could still prevent things from happening. Like PDICs will very much so nerf this because it gets to reroll basically all the dice so that Nora won't trigger, or Luke Skywalker actually doesn't trigger with Nora because when Luke attacks, the ship is treated to have no shields, so she can't actually Luke Skywalker doesn't reduce shields with Nora's critical effect, because there are no shields on that ship to trigger it. He goes right through, which is pretty mean, but the Nora's effect only works on herself and Gold Squadron. So food for thought. Also, when Luke gives a critical, and let's say if it's projector misaligned, technically during that attack and that critical comes up, there are no shields. So it would just straight up ignore it, because at that moment there are 0 shields on any hull. Flip that card over. So Luke's interaction with Nora is not. So those are the fleets. So let's check out how the game went. I'm actually going to jump to here. I had the bid by 1 point and chose to go second because I was very comfortable playing the objectives that I had for this fleet, especially with having all the prox mines. The prox mines made it so that Ken would have a challenge of dropping his Radis drop regardless of being first or second, and all of my objectives made it even more difficult for him to Radis drop. So I went with that. So my objectives for this fleet were surprise attack, hyperspace assault, and minefields. Surprise attack meant that I could raid him for the first 3 turns and have him situated on a station. So then it's either he's charging into me and dropping his Radis, which I'm fine with because all of my ships are close range brawlers. Let's bring on the attack baby. Or he would have to like avoid me for a couple turns, which is fine too because the longer Radis is in hyperspace, the more chance I have to kill it. His dropship. Hyperspace assault means that I can drop on him, which is what we ended up doing. We did this weird, like, he dropped, I drop, and I would get the advantage on that because I get to drop second because I'm second player, and then minefields would just give me more minefields to keep him away from wherever he wanted to drop. So I put him in a really hard spot with that, and that's one of the reasons why I chose second player. Also, I'm just comfortable playing either way, and this gave me more of an advantage. So we played Hyperspace Assault. So here's the map. There's a lot of tokens going on, so let's point them out. So we have the 3 Hyperspace Assault points that I can drop my ship in. And then I have mines all over here. So mine. So the idea I had here is because he's Radis, he basically has to do a center deployment. So a lot of obstacles in the way here, a lot of obstacles hiding my proximity mines so that if he tries to come through here, he'll trigger them. If he tries to drop in here, then he'll have obstacles and then trigger them, and then that's fine with me. Take the damage. That's cool. So I wasn't going to play on this side of the board. I chose to play on this side of the board. If he doesn't engage, I automatically win. That's how second player works. So I can put my hyperspace here. And I did this in like this weird semicircle so that when he comes in to do the Radis drop over here, that I could then come in almost on any angle and get my ship into close range to it. So if he Radis drop right now, right here, I could come into the rear. Or, because I didn't want to be double arced by that, I could come into the front of it right here. So I had a lot of different options for where to drop in and point back toward myself at the station and then avoid mines myself. So he could drop here, I could drop into the side and then kind of like pin it between all my ships. That was kind of my goal. Turn 1, fighters move, everything kind of moves, but it's slow rolling because I want to keep distance. This was moving at the end of turn 2, the tokens, just slightly to close it in on where Ken would be, so I had a really good drop point. Still no drop yet. We're still moving. I'm trying to herd him this way into my ships, and as you can see, here's all the tokens. My ship's moving in slowly. I'm expecting a Radis drop to come in somewhere over here, but I want it to be a bad Radis drop because that's really the best thing. So here's a spat. So if Ken keeps moving forward, then I'm going to start spatting and trying to kill his assault frigate before he drops. So he has to have this choice of at what range do I drop, because this technically can get to about here. And that's where Ken decides to drop it off to the side, avoiding mines, but then that allows me to drop my acclimator right in behind him, double arcing. And then as you can see here, this is the moment that I realized that those fighters should have been in hyperspace with that acclimator, because the acclimator, it can take like 1, maybe 2 good hits a turn before it starts really exploding. But what it can't do is take hits from the assault frigate and hits from the MC-75 and take all of this bomber damage. I needed my fighters there to escort and keep him from being able to drop onto me. And as soon as like we were like going, I'm like, oh, 3 fighters, yeah. Hyperspace assault makes a lot of sense for that. I missed that. So I missed that opportunity, but it still ended up working. I had my fighters close enough that I could command them in to lock them down. This was a brutal turn for this ship. It got boarding troopered, double arced by the acclimator, and then it got spat out the front of it with the Venator, and then the Venator moves in. Ken decided not to drop this turn the Profundity ship because it was too far out of range, and it would have just been gunned down by my 3 ships back here. So he chose to not do that and then drop it in on the next turn. So we don't have that drop-in picture, but just imagine the ships were still where it is, and this hammerhead got dropped in pretty much right here, double arcing the front of my ship, laying in with it, all of its stuff, and then scooting out of the way. 75 had like no defense tokens and nothing left and got killed by, I believe, the Pelta. And then long range shots on from my ships and the acclimator, just because of activation order, really damaged and ended up killing the assault frigate. But at this point, like, our fighters are locked in a battle, and Peltas don't chase anything down, and the Venator's not going to be in range of this hammerhead. So the hammerhead gets away, and I had this opportunity to maybe kill this flotilla. I know it's like, technically it's 18 points, but it has like 12 points. It's almost as much in upgrades on it as it does without. So I put the spat token out the side. I should have put it out the front, because Ken just drops it right in front of me, and it's at medium range, so not close to my ship. Or was it? I don't get an accuracy. Regardless, I don't get an accuracy, and if I had the blue dice, I probably would have killed it, or at least done 1 damage, so when I rammed it, it would have exploded. So right to the end, still shooting, and then my fighters cleaned up Ken's fighters. So into the game looked like this. Assault frigate, MC-75, all of Ken's squadrons. He killed my acclimator, so 84 to 314, difference of 230 for a 9-2. So that was that match. I really enjoyed both of these fleets. Like I was saying, though, there are things that I would change, and that's for sure intensify firepower. Unless you just really want to treat it as a single-use card. I just have a hard time using single-use cards, even like external racks. That's 4 points, and for the most part, when I throw them in, it's like, here's 0 damage. So like, discard cards hurt me. I like having multiple uses of them. In Intensify with Spat, it makes it really hard to choose which to power. And for the most part, the answer is always Spat, just from the Venator being your main killer ship. So big thank you to both of them again. And let me pull up. So Melfi 1105 made the Radis fleet, and Lord Kimboti made the Bale fleet. So thank you very much to both of you for submitting fleets to us with that. So let's move on to our next fleet. This is going to be what was episode 4. And episode 4 was Ramadi versus Kraken. And the Ramadi fleet was brought to us by Rovechkin, and the Kraken fleet was brought to us by Kalish. So it's kind of funny. So Rovechkin, Ramadi, RR, and then you have Kalish, Kraken, KK. Like, it's just one of those stupid things that I found amusing, that they both had commanders that started with the initials of their user tags and stuff on our Discord. So let's talk about the Kraken fleet first. In Season 5, I've pretty much let Ken choose every fleet that he had. So in this matchup, we both pretty much knew who was going to win because it's really hard to beat a double onager fleet unless you're specifically decked to play and beat a double onager fleet, especially with the upgrades that you'll see in a second that are on here. We actually didn't really have any of those fleets that were submitted to us, so I just had to pick something. And I picked this fleet to go against the double onager fleet because it had thermal shields, so you could see the interaction between thermal shields, and then whichever player ended up playing this fleet became a survival game of how many points could you get off the double onager fleet before exploding. So that's really the challenge of playing this fleet against other things. I really like it. I like Kraken with the Gazantes. He changes the formulation because you can choose to like shoot a Gazante or shoot my actual ships that are going to do damage to you, and then hyperspacing assault in a ship makes it really, really good too. So lots of good options there. So let's start off with the flagship. It's the Munificent class Star Frigate. It has Kraken on it, thermal shields, point defense ion cannons, and linked turbo laser towers. So Kraken, once per activation, allows you to change a die to any facing with a single icon. So you can't go to doubles, but you can go to crits, which are useful, and you can also go to accuracies, which are also useful. So it's a form of dice control, especially when you have like 3 reds. Hopefully one of them shows up as a hit. Link Turbo Laser Tower, one of the blanks into something else, hopefully. And then you take that last blank and you just Kraken it into, do you need a crit? Do you need an accuracy? Whatever you need. Like, it's pretty good. This is a pretty tanky ship. It has thermal shield, so you can reduce the dice pool getting attacked against you by half. And it has point defense ion cannon, so when you get in close with fighters or other ships, you can just force a reroll, which actually makes it really survivable against fighters and decently survivable against black dice trying to crit you. The second ship is a Providence class carrier with Rune Hakao, which is one of my favorite officers. It also has thermal shields, intensify firepower, point defense ion cannons, and linked turbo laser towers. So Rune can pretty much power intensify firepower for the entire game, which is pretty awesome. You start them off with 2 concentrate fire tokens. So over the course of the game, you really only have like 4, maybe 5 rounds of combat. You don't worry about it the first turn. For the second turn, you pull a token off one of the ships near it. Technically you do that during the first turn to power it for the second turn. So you intensify the second turn, and then you do the same thing for the third turn. Then you use Rune for the fourth turn, and then you use Rune for the fifth turn, and then you chuck intensify firepower out the airlock to get it for the sixth turn. So you only need 2 tokens on other ships, and you can power it for the entire game, which is pretty awesome. Also, you can gain multiple defense tokens. I use that a lot too sometimes because usually I'm using it to power intensify. But a lot of times if you pull it off a bigger ship that has like a concentrate fire and a navigate, then you have 2 tokens all at the same time. It's a great way how to get tokens. I really like it. Then you have this little hard cell, which is a fun hard cell. It has teaks and it has slicer tools. So what you can do with it is you can navigate the entire game with it. Navigate's not a bad command. And then you put the navigate token onto Teaks. Teaks says, have any token you want. And you're like, what do I want? Engineering token. So then you can keep navigating into a position that's good and then slicering someone every single turn of the game with Teaks and slicer tools. Really fun combo. Ken and I talked, I think, about this in our wrap-up video. We both really enjoyed this card. Then you have 2 Gazantes, both of them with heavy ion emplacements. So the Gazantes, as of the time of this recording and submitting the list, were pretty much brand new. I personally don't think double Gazante is the way to go with the CIS. And one of the reasons for that is while it's a good ship, there are other ships in their fleet or squadrons that work just as well, and you usually only need one of them. Because with like heavy ion emplacements, this is an expensive ship now. This is 36 points for something that has 3 hull, can get rammed to death, which is what you pretty much see, and only has 1 dice, so it's really easy to obstruct and things like that. It does pair well with Kraken because that 1 dice can automatically be turned into a crit if you are using it, and then you can trigger heavy ion emplacements, which is really good. Like, it greatly increases the firepower, but I think Separatist fleets really only want 1. It's something I've been playing around with different fleet builds, and time will tell. But I honestly think that 1 Gazanti is better than 2 Gazantis for this archetype. But it's up to you. Droid Tri-Fighters, you got 2 of them just to keep off. Like, you could take a Gazanti, switch it out, and then get a bunch more squadrons to help keep squadrons off. Or even I believe you have then enough points to get at least one of the aces, maybe 2 of them. But you lose an activation. So there's that. So your choice. On to the next fleet. You have Rovechkin's double Onager with a victory, which is a surprise fleet. So you have an Onager class testbed with General Ramadi, Intel Officer, ouch, Ordnance Experts, Gunnery Chief Valerian, the Orbital Bombardment, Particle Cannons, and Cataclysm. So kind of a pretty scary looking Onager here. Intel Officer just makes it incredibly mean because most things only have like 3 tokens and they have no redundancy. So you just go, target your brace, eat a ton of damage. Do you keep your brace? Probably not. Use your redirect? Probably. And Gunnery Chief means that you can like pull out dice before and after re-rolling them. Yeah, ouch. Especially when the follow-up is, hey, here's another Intel Officer. So if you didn't use your brace on the first one and you used your redirect, I target your brace again. Now, if you use it, it's gone. And if you use your redirect, it's gone. And if you don't do any of it, all that damage is just right through into you. Ordnance Experts to reroll the black dice, Veteran Gunners to reroll everything, Orbital Bombardment, Particle Cannons, because that's really the only thing that you put on a test bed, and then the Sunder title. Sadly, we weren't able to see the Sunder title take place. And one of those reasons is that the Thermal Shields was able to reduce the dice, so there was never black dice in the pool for this ship to use against my ship to try to strip that Thermal Shields off. But like, this would be a great thing to use to strip Thermal Shields off or like ECM or anything useful, because you can take off pretty much any type of card with it. So all the weapons, as this has been errated, offensive retrofit and defensive retrofit. It's an expensive card, but if you're attacking something big and being able to get rid of like a key component of someone's fleet, it's very useful. But both of these, you point it at a ship and it will die because double intel is brutal, especially when you're talking about very large amounts of damage coming in outside of range that ship can do anything with. And then you have this. And this is the thing that looks weird about this fleet, right? So you have a Victory 1 class Star Destroyer with assault proton torpedoes. And it took me a while to figure out how you would want to use this. And it's really just there to protect one of your flanks for your onagers. So like, ideal deployment is you put both Gazantis down, so that's 2. And then you can put an onager down. And then you can put the other onager on either side of that onager, and then the Victory there to protect your flank. Because it's a slow ship, right? Slow ship with black dice. But the way you try to beat double onager is you try to move really fast to the side. Well, do you really want to move really fast into the side when there's a Victory sitting there and now you gave the Victory 1 black dice range? Not really. And keeping it like really light on stuff makes it so then it's not a point pinata. It's just there to protect your flank. And I think that's actually a pretty good use for Victory 1. Like, don't make it super expensive. Just use it there. Like, it adds red dice, and it can't be obstructed with ROM. So, like, you're throwing four reds out the front or 3 out the side if it's obstructed, and you're probably shooting through your ships. Or the person like comes into you, and then you get your whole front at close range. So I like it. It's pretty smart. Then you have Gazanti class cruisers with Hondos and Comsnet, and that's basically Hondos there just to help trigger Cataclysm on the first turn. And then you have Darth Vader, so in case you really, really, really need to get a reroll, you can. And then Comsnet. So both of those can pass tokens to any of the ships. And that does it for the fleets. I wouldn't really say I would change anything really about either of the fleets. I think both of them are structured pretty well, and like it's really easy to just say, yeah, I would drop the Victory, but I can understand what the Victory's purpose is in here, so I would say leave it. Protecting your flank against small ships that want to come into you, and then you're like, oh yeah, here you want to come at me? Boom, here's a fistful of dice into you. It's pretty scary. So let's talk about objectives. Ken was first player, so he had to pick from my fleet, which is Most Wanted, Hyperspace Assault, and Dangerous Territories. It's kind of funny, like Hyperspace Assault is in the last episode, and then there was also an option here, and you very much so don't want to pick this because then you got like a Gazanti in your butt, and then that allows me to trigger Kraken on all of those shots right off the bat, which would be awesome for me, but Ken chose not to do that. And then Most Wanted makes those Gazanti's murder machines, because if you can double arc with them, like the Gazanti's throwing like 2 dice out the front, 2 dice out the side, and then a concentrate fire, you're going to definitely trigger the heavy ion emplacement. And then like Kraken allows me to rearrange one of those dice. It's a bad option. I don't know what I would have targeted. I probably would have targeted the VSD just to kill it real fast, because that's really where the easy points are, and then you just take the easy points. Fleet points of the destroyed objective ship is double. Do not double the cost of the upgrade cards. So like I don't get the 4 points, and you just double a VSD, so that's like 150-ish points. So I think I would probably have put it on the VSD, and then clearly I would put it on the Gazanti because, whatever. But Ken didn't choose any of those options. He chose Dangerous Territory. I'm not sold on this being an objective for this fleet. But you don't take damage, and the other player does, so there's that. So let's see how the game deploys. Okay, so here's deployment for these fleets. We basically have a very standard like block formation of all of the objectives here. I didn't want to be able to give away where I was planning on going. Ken clearly, because he has the double onager, he's going to do a central deployment. So his being here is fine. I don't know why he grabbed all asteroids, because asteroids are worse. So I got the debris fields here. I don't take anything from any of them. I had a hard choice, and that comes down to I knew that whatever the onagers pointed at were 100% going to die. And if I put all my ships together, that just meant the onagers just would double tap into all of my stuff, and I would lose all of it. So I had to go for a split formation. So I started with Gazantis and fighters to one side, hard cell to the other side, and then I had my 2 main combat ships, if you would, the Munificent flagship and the Providence. I put the Providence farther away because it can go speed 3, and the Munificent off to the side. So I think the Munificent costs less points, but let me double check. That is... The Munificent as a whole costs 119 points, and the Providence costs 131 points. So the Providence is more valuable to try to keep alive. So I had to deploy it as such. I knew the Providence for 100% could take out the Victory by itself, and the Munificent was not so much. And so that's why I decided split spawn. I have about equal amount of points on each side of the table. Take your pick. You're only going to get half of it. And then I would try to move in, collect as many tokens as I can to negate that out, and then try to kill the VSD, maybe a Gazanti or two, maybe sneak off with a Victory. If Onager's in a really poor spot, then try to take it out, but that's like completely secondary. This is mainly just trying to maintain a close loss or a close victory. I did not think this was going to possibly be able to go to a blowout unless you chose if you chose hyperspace assault, that would have changed everything, but not with this objective. So as you can see, I'm coming in close. Ken didn't have a shot on turn 1, thank goodness. But now he has his onagers both pointed. He took the choice to kill the flagship, which is the flagship is closer, so it's easier to get the shots on the flagship than try to turn the onagers all the way over here to try to line up the Providence. Did that intentionally. I knew that I wouldn't be at close range, so I could use my defense tokens to reduce damage coming through and then hopefully land on the station. And hopefully, like at that point between intel, I could just avoid using a bunch of stuff with the intel so that I would have hull damage. So when I land on the station, I heal it. And then when I activate again, I can use my defense tokens to readjust things. And then my repairing would add shields back to try to last as long as possible. So these ships can close in and these would have to be focused on over here. I also did this nifty, like I tried to land in front of the ship to block it, because if I could, then it would ram, fall back on the asteroid, and kill itself, which would have been really funny, but it was just not enough. And then the Providence is going to be trying to slam into the side of this Victory, and these two ships hopefully will be able to move into the front and pin it. So distraction, move in, and try to kill it. And it kind of worked. I was eventually able to ram kill the Gazanti with this hard sell. The onagers are kind of pointed in the wrong direction of my fleet. My Munificent survived one turn longer than I thought, so it's just waiting here to die. VSD, I think, is on like 1 health, and Gazanti escaped here. One of them died. Providence has this double arced. So Ken has this choice. He could try to move the Victory out of the way. It's still probably going to die. Or he can kill my flagship. If he doesn't kill the flagship, then I move into close range with him, and then all my defensive stuff is working again. I have him technically pinned. And then he risks me moving through with my Providence and taking out that onager. So he basically has to make this shot first. At the beginning of the round, or things start really falling apart for him. Because then I kill this, I'm on top of that, and it just becomes bad for him. So he does that. So everything unfolds like this, shoots that dies, this moves, this. I ended up just ramming because at that point with this dead, I don't want to actually feed my Providence into the side of all this onagers, because he could do that. He could just slowly like move away and shoot me, and I didn't want to take that type of damage. This Gazanti's going to get away. This one's going to swoop in the back. This hard cell's going to swoop here. So as you can see, that's what happened. If I moved here, then I was going to get double arced basically as I flew past here by these onagers, and I didn't want to risk getting tabled at that point. We did play out, this is where we called it, but we did play out the round, and Ken did make shots on my ships, and they didn't die. They got away. My Providence stayed alive, moved here, and his stuff just, at this point, flew out of the way. Because, again, Ken had to make choices of, does he move this ship first, or does he ram here? and if he rams here, then my Providence can come into the back of it and double arc it. So like he had a challenge of how to activate, and he didn't want to give me points. I didn't want to give him points. The dice came up as nothing died, and everything just flew off. So that was the end of the game, and it was very close. It was for Ken, 45 victory points for both of us. Ken scored 200 points because he killed a Gazanti and the Munificent. And I scored 149 points. So the MOV is 51 for a 6-5. Even if I were to have killed the other Gazanti, it still would have been a 6-5. So I basically had to try to kill one of the onagers to win. And Ken, if he didn't kill the Gazanti, it would have been very, very, very close. And then if I were to have killed a Gazanti, it would have been in striking range for flipping, I think. Because mine were like 36 points and his were like 28. So yeah. If I killed his other Gazanti and he didn't kill my Gazanti, the game would have flipped. And if he killed another Gazanti of mine, or even a fighter at this point, he only needed, I think, 9 points to get into the 7-4 bracket. So it was very close to being the score that it is. And I just swiped the wrong way. Yeah, he only needed 9 more points to get to the 7-4 bracket. So this was a very stressful game to try to mitigate damage and try to keep Ken's ships pointing the wrong direction so that he didn't completely obliterate me. So good job to both of these people for submitting their fleets, for Rovechkin and for Kalish. There are aspects of both these fleets that I really, really liked. I actually took a lot of the ideas from the CIS fleet. I really like that hard cell slicer tool with Teaks. I probably will eventually be using that in some of the lists that I make, just because it just fits kind of nicely as its own small little package to do what it needs to off by its own self. And Double Onager is just so mean. I'm not sold though on, I'm never sold on her. Chief Gunnery Virillion. I personally prefer full rerolls than being able to maybe put a dice out that's useful. And if I were to have her on it, I would probably prefer like Sensor Net or Sensor Team or the Veteran Gunners for the full reroll. I think that's where she gets her most use out of. Because if you're first player, you get the blank dice. So that means the first round, you have no real way to reroll red dice. You put a blank in, and then you take out something useful for the next shot, compared to if you had Veteran Gunners. You take the blank, you put it in, pull out something useful, reroll the whole lot, and then your blank hopefully isn't a blank. I just don't like her. I think full reroll is better than her, but that is me. So I think that's all I have, and now I'm technically caught up with Backseat until we release our next episode, which will be coming out this Friday. And it's going to be, let me see if I have a spoiler for you guys that are watching this. I do. So here we go. Transition over. It's going to be Trench versus Garm. Lots of fighters, and you get to see some newly painted. I don't think it's been on the channel yet, but this is my Rebel 1 painted Providence, so I'm excited for that to get on the table. So that's going to be our next episode this week. If you haven't already, you should check out our entire Rebellion in the Rim campaign that we just finished for the Clone Wars. We just released the Pivotal last week, and Ken and I are working on our campaign wrap-up and our thoughts. So we might do that almost like a Backseat Admiral, that we both get on and talk about our fleets, talk about our plans and how we did it and things like that, because we both have a lot of thoughts and ideas of how we built fleets, how those fleets functioned, how the campaign system works. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be coming out soon for the channel, and then we're going to just be continuing with Season 5 with user-submitted lists. So lots of new stuff coming out for us. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully we do this live and I can interact with you guys again soon. But until next time, I'm John. You've been watching the Backseat Admiral, and this is Ion Radio.